Hello, and today I want to tell you about the process that I've been through. 4 months, when 4 months turns into 4 years. So I'm fighting back against corruption in the legal processes, and the man who pursued me through the courts with false allegations and misrepresentation of facts. He wanted to see me homeless or in prison. And now the civil court in Spain is processing the eviction on the 19th of December based on false statements and an unfair trial where my own legal defence discriminated against me on the grounds of language and socio-economic status. I am an English foreigner in Spain, and the reasons why she discriminated was that 10 days before the eviction hearing, she wrote a communication to the court, and in that communication she had written that she was not going to interrogate the plaintiff because neither of the plaintiff or the defendant spoke or understood Spanish. So that's discrimination on the grounds of language. She wasn't going to question my former partner, even though I had told her that the statements in the court document were false and were misrepresentation of fact. I'd even told her there'd been abuse in the relationship, and she ignored that too. She just said, that's the criminal court. And I understand that in Spain, that the prosecution for the gender violence courts does have power in the civil courts if a judge can see that there could have been or may be a gender violence complaint to be answered, and she ignored everything that I said. The other ground is socio-economic status, which is law in Spain, because she wrote to the court to say her client, me, lacked any form of income. Now this was May 2022 when she wrote this document, and the hearing was June 2022, okay? And I didn't have any form of income. In fact, my bank account had gone overdrawn at that point. I still had a property in the UK at that point, but it wasn't producing an income because I only had £100 a month from that after the mortgage had been paid. So, socio-economic status, because she said I'd lacked any form of income and the court would have to appoint a translator. So she was saying my client hasn't got money to pay for a translator, therefore it'll cost more to the court. And that's another ground of discrimination. It's socio-economic status. Now, I didn't know at that point that she'd filed that letter. I went to the court 5 days before the hearing to speak with the court official, and I had evidence that I wanted to submit, but I didn't understand the legal process in Spain because no evidence can be submitted by the defendant. It has to go through the solicitor and an attorney. It's the attorney that submits any evidence. And so I had evidence of a signed agreement with my former partner from 2021, and that evidence didn't get into the court. I also have evidence of a letter that he'd written in 2020 which promised 50% of the value of the property, and that evidence wasn't allowed in court either. And because there was no translator in the court when I stood in front of the judge on the 10th of June of 2022, there was no questions asked, and I was denied any opportunity to speak to the court because my solicitor wasn't going to ask any questions. And in that court, I had a translator with me, the same translator that had stood twice at my side in the gender violence hearings in 2020 and 2021. And because the case was dismissed by the judge, then apparently there was no gender violence, but that's not the case. It was that the judge didn't have enough evidence because the free lawyer who was representing me in that case hadn't asked for any more evidence, and there was no further evidence produced apart from the report that was written by the Guardia Civil when I reported the case, and the original solicitor who told me to file the gender violence complaint. I sent the dismissal sentence to him and he told me to appeal. And then I went back to the free lawyer to request with him, what can I do? I've been told I should appeal. And he then said, my job is done. You need to find a new solicitor. And at that point, I was past caring and I just thought, this is ridiculous. I've already spent so much time trying to find solicitors to help us process this information, to help process everything that was happening, and none of the solicitors were wanting to take a case. So this is another barrier, that women actually face all of these different barriers in finding legal representation, in taking a case forward, and then you get to the courts, and then there's bias in the courts, discrimination in the courts, and you don't get a fair hearing. And that no fair hearing and discrimination is actually Article 6 violation. No fair hearing, because it's a civil court. If it was in the criminal court and you didn't get a fair hearing, or there was unfair or discrimination and bias, that would be an unfair trial. But this was a hearing. And there's been lots and lots of different mistakes throughout 4 years, because my former partner actually threatened before he left that I had 4 months in this house. You've got 4 months, he said. If you haven't bought this house by the 15th of January, if this house isn't sold by the 15th of January, then you're out. And I'm moving back in on the 16th of January. So if it wasn't that he'd already ended the relationship abruptly, decided that he was in love with another woman, then was going to leave me in Spain with no money and no job, had promised me 50% of the value of the house, within 2 weeks of moving into the new woman's house, he decides that I'm going to get nothing. And he wrote his letter and copied in his lawyer and said, you know, you're going to get nothing at all because I can evict you. And I was thinking I would only have 4 months, but nobody was getting evicted in 2020. And then a June 2022 case went through, and that was held over because the solicitor who I wanted to sack did an appeal, and the appeal was dismissed. And now it's 2024, and guess what? The court have now decided that they can evict me, but now I haven't even got any money left. Nothing at all left. So this is the position I'm in right now. And I've still got an agreement with the ex-partner, but he won't honour any of his promises, and he won't honour the agreement that I have. So I'm just waiting for the police to turn up here now on the 19th of December at 11:30, which apparently then I'll be thrown out onto the streets.